Hi everyone, it's Wednesday, time for Wisdom Wednesday. Hope you're doing well, and I hope you have traveled and are where you will be celebrating Thanksgiving, whether here or if you're traveling. I know a lot of folks are, and I hope that this time is filled with a lot of gratitude and celebration and fun times with family and friends. Today I thought I would spend a little time talking about autoimmunity. For those of you that really don't know the term, autoimmunity is an entity within the body where the immune system can attack and destroy certain tissues in the body. One of the most common ones is the thyroid gland, and that autoimmune disorder is generally on the low thyroid end, called Hashimoto's, but that can also be a hyperthyroid entity called Graves' disease, but it's the body and its immune system attacking itself. You can also have many other tissues that can be a part of autoimmunity, things like the gut, the skin, muscle, vasculitis, lots of different things that can present as a disorder, but underlying it is the immune system that is causing the breakdown of certain tissues in the body. Now, in mainstream medicine, generally speaking, this is treated with steroids or anti-inflammatories. Rheumatoid arthritis is a very fine example of that. But over time, that's really just putting a Band-Aid on it. It's not really addressing the root cause. And when you begin to study functional medicine, the idea with functional medicine is to look at root cause and try to address it at its roots, and therefore trying to eliminate the disorder altogether rather than just throwing a Band-Aid on top of it. And in the functional world, autoimmunity is thought to be a result of three different things. The first thing being that each person needs to have with an autoimmune disorder needs to have a genetic predisposition. And that generally is something that can be identified, but not always. And just because you may have a genetic predisposition, say for instance, your mother had Hashimoto's or your grandmother had a real bad case of rheumatoid arthritis, it doesn't mean that you will have it, but there may be a genetic predisposition. So that's only one aspect of it. Secondly, generally there is a significant trigger, and a trigger is generally a major life stressor, although it can be small little stressors, and over time, finally you fall off the cliff with either another small stressor or just not such a major stressor, but it can accumulate over time. So stressors do play a vital role as far as signaling the body that it is overwhelmed with having to manage just the stress in our life and can't manage just the day in, day out cleanup within the body. So you need to have a genetic predisposition, you need to have a trigger, and lastly, you need to have leaky gut. Now, leaky gut is an interesting term. It's basically a problem with permeability of the small bowel where things can leak in. So things permeate into the system. Our bowel is created, if you think about it, it's really outside the body. It's like the center of a donut hole or the center of a tube, if you will. And the biggest purpose of that inner lining of that tube is to absorb the things that are good for us and to eliminate the things that are not so good for us. And so it has to be able to determine that. And in our small bowel, there's just one very thin layer of cells that is that protection. And underneath there is a lot of the immune system, certainly blood vessels to grab things and carry them through. And one of the things that happens as we age is that we are not able to break our foods down. We've talked about the digestive system and how our body is to break down particularly proteins into single amino acids. But what happens as we age and over time, and for many of us, no matter what, whether we're young or old, some of the times we just are not able to, we don't have the enzymes to break these foods down. And so you get small little snippets of amino acids that are called peptides. And when they get into the small bowel says, I don't know if you're friend or foe. The bacteria in the small bowel don't understand that either. And so it can set up an inflammatory cascade there and allow that tissue to swell and allow things to leak in. And so this is what we call leaky gut. So we don't have much control over our genetics. We wish we had more control over triggers, but life is a crapshoot, good times, bad times, lots of potential triggers, lots of life stressors that can hit us. And so really the only thing we have to look at that we might have some control over is our gut and how to try to manage the gut situation, trying to keep our microbiome good, trying to eat foods that we can digest well. So leaky gut is a big part of that issue. So what can we do, or what could you do if you happen to have an autoimmune disorder? One of the things that we really want to start looking at is looking at our nutrition and our biology of the nutrition and how we can eat things that are certainly much better for us that don't put a huge burden on the small bowel. Now, we do have the ability to do food sensitivity testing, but in reality, I can remember going to a meeting at one point and the physician who was talking said, I just want to put a sign on my door, go gluten-free, dairy-free for 3 months and come back and let me know how you feel and let me know if you still have symptoms. And interestingly enough, probably 75% of most of the chronic illnesses and most of the issues that we see with autoimmunity, particularly for joints, psoriasis, even Hashimoto's, we know that we can lower the inflammatory burden of the body by eliminating these particular foods. These are just harder foods to break down as we age. The protein in milk, the protein in wheat, the gliadin and the gluten are just harder proteins to break down. And if you look at a lot of the research, we just really don't have the enzymes to do it. And not really any human on the planet. And even though you may not have a full-blown celiac, none of us are really well prepared, particularly as we age, to break those down into single amino acids. So certainly just looking at going gluten-free, dairy-free is a start, but there are tests that we can do to look at food sensitivities for folks and eliminating those. It doesn't mean that you can't ever have them. It's just trying to reduce the body burden and trying to lower inflammation in the body. And if you can lower total inflammation, you generally can have some real benefit to a particular problem if you are developing or if you have been diagnosed with an autoimmune disorder. And as we know, certainly there may be times that steroids are necessary, and we are looking at a lot of biologics and they have some benefit, but there's always a price to pay for those, not only in financial pricing, but in terms of what it does to lower our immune system for other things when viruses are around, or if you have to have surgeries or anything like that. Being immune compromised can be problematic. So the more we can do on our end to look for ways to lower inflammation and decrease the body burden, and doing that with what we eat and keeping your bowel in good shape, healing the gut with glutamine powder, that can be really helpful. Obviously eliminating food sensitivities, re-inoculating with good prebiotics, postbiotics, and probiotics by keeping the gut microbiome in good shape. And we are learning more and more. If you look at just any medical literature, the microbiome is certainly a major player in our overall health and wellness. So if you are struggling with any of those things, one of the things that we do is often look at food sensitivities. There are some other things out there. We know that low-dose naltrexone can be exceedingly helpful in people who have autoimmunity. And so there are a lot of other ways to approach this than just going directly to pharmaceuticals. So I just wanted to kind of explain that to you and help folks understand the underlying cause that we may not be looking for just in mainstream medicine. Anyway, I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving. This is a time that we can mindfully choose to have an enjoyable day of food and fellowship and family. However, if you are struggling with major gut issues, or you're struggling with any autoimmune issues or disorders, you might want to be mindful of how you choose to spend your caloric intake, and try to be mindful of that. And if you do go off the rail for a day or so, get right back on your program, trying to minimize inflammatory foods. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Have a great day.